You have to cut that bird's mouth so that it planes out with the rest of the rafters on the top. We try to take the wood out of the wall and put in insulation. That changes depending on how you apply the stress in relation to the grain direction.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bungalows for Bachelors Late Night Learning Live. Tonight, we've had enough bullshit, and we're getting straight to the point. This is my lovely guest here today. Welcome, Mr.
What's your name? Everybody. My name is Will Stevenson. I'm Sam's brother.
Hello, everybody. Sam from Will. All right, so we do it live. So I got Will with me here this evening because we were out doing some cool construction stuff today, and I'm going to show you guys what we were doing just a little bit. But today we're going to be talking about not having bullshit jobs and like producing some value and stuff. But before I get into that, I need to address the fantastic music producer that produces all of the music for the Bungalows for Bachelors channel, Mr. Green Observer himself. Check out the link in the description below to see what he does and the kind of music he can make. If you want to be joining the Bungalows for Bachelors community, we have a free Telegram community. Go to t.me/BFB success, and you can join that there. If you want to send a link to myself, you can go to t.me/Samuel D. Stevenson. Send me a message. If you want to buy the world's best cookbook, by the way, we've got one right here. And this is what it looks like. And we're even positioned properly for the cover. That's right, boys and girls. That is the best cookbook. If you want to learn how to cook audacious meals, then that is the book for you. So send me a message on Telegram, and we're just selling them at cost. It's like $10, $12 or something like that. And you can pick one up too. If you want to see the other body of work that I have got going, you can check out my link tree. That's linktree/Samuel D. Stevenson. Excuse me. Now,
doing sweet dabs.
Yes, we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, Will and I were working hard today installing some siding on a wall for a friend of mine. And I'm going to drop this little nugget video in here for you guys so you can see what that looked like at one particular point. And as you can tell, we have a lot of fun here at Bungalows for Bachelors.
Boy, howdy.
Was
that was a lot of fun, though.
That was, yeah. It was cool. We ended up siding the whole wall, and it's all done now. We're ready to ship out. I'm shipping up to Washington to go do more good content for you guys from the garage to ADU conversion up there in the Northwest. So we're here to talk today about the complications of the world somehow having all of these jobs that exist that are somewhat, bullshitty, right? They don't really produce a lot of value, or they produce or solve a problem that solves something that didn't have to exist, right? And so we're talking a little bit about that today. We're going to have some back and forth about some of Will's experiences and some of mine as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is the architecture industry, right? So basically, there's a problem in the design industry and construction where in order for plans to be drawn, somebody has to know how to draft and draw on a computer, and somebody has to know all about construction, and then somebody has to be running a business. And typically what happens, and the problem is in a big company, is those tasks get broken up into individual tasks. So there's one guy who sits at the computer and he does the CAD. There's one guy who's running the company and he's out making money and selling and sales and all this stuff. And there's somebody else who understands and is reviewing or whatever. And so they break out the tasks. And the problem that comes from that is that the people who are doing the actual work are the least paid people of the company.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
that's pretty much true. Anywhere you go, is the people doing the actual work are paid the least.
Yes. So, and that's kind of the way the world works.
Do we want to shout out? There's an actual book out there called Bullshit Jobs. I suppose. It's worth shouting out. That's basically where the topic of this conversation came from.
Yeah. Do you remember the author?
Oh man, I don't. Shout out to whoever you are, author man who wrote Bullshit Jobs.
Jobs. Yeah. Let's see.
But it's basically, it's a pretty cool book, and it talks about how like there's essentially two types of people in the world. There's the people that are at or about the surface of the earth that are moving materials around and getting things done and creating things, and then there's other people that tell those people how to do it. And within that layer of people that tell other people how to do work, there's a ton of just bureaucracy and bullshit jobs. And that's more or less a scaling problem that comes with things. But who's the author?
David Graeber.
David Graeber.
David Graeber is the author.
It's a very fun book.
I like it. Yes.
I had a lot of fun reading that thing.
Yes.
I highly recommend you guys all.
Has that come up on the DJ Roundtable Book Club yet?
We have not done it on book club, but it will probably be done at some point once I'm done hosting all the sci-fi books. I'm going to branch out into some of the other books I like, and that's definitely one of them on the list. So.
Excellent. Perfect. So one of the issues when a company scales like this, right, is they've got to be able to like afford the overhead of what they're doing. So if it's just me drawing plans, there's a little bit of overhead for me to run my business, but most of the money goes to paying me to do my work.
Yeah.
As soon as I have like 3 people drawing for me, then I need to be able to pay for them to do that. Well, let's say it's just one person drawing, because like the person is doing the drawing. The drawing is the thing that makes the company money.
Yes.
And so if there's somebody else drawing, now there's 2 people that work for the company, but only one person's drawing.
Correct.
Which means now that same amount of money coming in has to cover 2 people's salaries.
Yes.
Right. And so there has to be a split in the value. You just can't keep the value like the same.
Yeah.
And like the more you scale, the more overhead you take on.
Yeah.
And then like more of the value has to get sucked out just to run the company.
Yep. Because eventually you have to put in a cafeteria at the building that you work at.
Exactly.
And then you got to hire cooks, and then you got to like pay a janitor, and you got to do all these other things. And you see a similar problem. I don't want to jump ahead of some of the questions here, but you see a similar problem in the military where it's like only about a third of the military is like the people that are out and about fighting. The other 2/3 is all support. So like whether it's administrative, whether it's logistics, truck drivers, not nurses and things, but like corpsmen and medics, things of that nature. Like only about 1/3 of all the military, and that was just my experience in the Marine Corps, is like the guys who are flying planes and shooting bad guys, or the dudes that are on the ground like running around pounding and killing people. The rest, and I think that 1/3 is probably a pretty generous exaggeration. It's probably closer to 20 or 15%, but
got it.
Most of the military is all support, and it's not the actual shakers and movers.
Right. Would you say that there was of that like larger percentage of the military that was not the fighting people, if you want to call it that, right? Do you think there was a large portion of those jobs in there that were unnecessary?
Yeah. So my specific job in the military was I was a landing support specialist, and what that means is I essentially load and unload cargo, and I manifest people, and I manifest gear and things at giant points of embark and debark. So like military airports, military like shipping ports, train yards, beach assaults, things like that, where there's a lot of people getting onto and getting on like giant vessels of embarkation. And most of the beginning of my career was spent sitting around doing nothing, because unless you're attached to a unit that's like deploying or preparing to deploy, then you're put in like essentially the best way that I can reference it is essentially like a library where other Marine units would come in and they would rent books out, and they'd be like, okay, we need this many of these Marines on our deployment, so we're taking this from your stash. There was like 50 or 60 of us in this platoon, and we would just like sit around at our we called it a shop. It was just essentially a dusty warehouse full of slings and like stuff, but we would just chill out. And a big part of the first 3 years that I had in the Marine Corps was spent doing nothing until I learned how to become like a marksmanship trainer, and then went on and did other things that was a significant portion of my career. Okay.
And how would you describe while you were doing the nothing job?
Yeah.
Day to day, did that seem like just like you didn't really care? It was just kind of boring. There was a lot of make work.
Yeah, it was a lot of make work. We're not allowed to swear on this channel, are we?
I don't care.
Okay. Yeah, it was a lot of fuck games. It was a lot of like, hey, pull those chains out and like clean the rust off of them. The company commander's coming in, and we got to look busy like we're doing something, like we're important. And it's like, dude, there's 60 of us here, and like the base needs maybe about 20 of us. And so like we're sitting around doing nothing and just waiting for a unit to come by and say like, hey, I need these Marines on like this deployment or the other thing. And until that point, we just sat and this was like during the advent of smartphones back in like 2011, 2013. Like we were just sitting around playing on our little Blackberries and like those early versions of smartphones with like fun little games on them and stuff. And some people brought like Game Boys in and shit. But it was a lot of like sitting around, sweeping the floor, picking up cigarette butts from the parking lot outside, just a bunch of make work, because it's like we didn't have a mission, we didn't have a goal, we didn't have like a specific purpose. Now, when I was on deployment doing this job for real, like that shit was crazy and hectic. But it's like, you know, these pinpoints of chaos and then like a great long sit around and do nothing. So
would you say that like during the sit around and do nothing time, there was a pressure or an expectation that you're maybe growing or learning somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a lot of like professional education that we were encouraged to do, but it wasn't like forced on us. It's just like, hey, try and be useful with your time because you're like Uncle Sam is paying you. And so like a lot of us were like, I don't understand a whole lot of the beginning of my enlistment because I was in for 8 years. And so the first 3 years just didn't make much sense to me because I was just like getting used to the whole place and figuring out how things work. And I didn't understand all the games and all the, like, I didn't take in what was going on all around me. So it just seemed like a big fuck game to me. And, but yeah, there was encouragement to go and do things like take online courses or go do like push-ups or whatever. But it's like there's only so much like busy work that you can do inside like a warehouse before it's like, man, I'm like a monkey in a cage here, and like I'm just trying to figure out how many ways can I peel this orange before, you know, it gets old and crazy and stuff.
Right.
But it was encouraged, and then, you know, I eventually got sent to go do other military occupations. Like I got sent to go do like assault climber training. I got sent to go do marksmanship training. I got sent to do like training where it's like you do hazmat, like inspection and certification. Like you walk around with like a radiation counter and you don like hazmat gear, like the fucking suits and stuff. And you walk around and you like plant little things in the ground. And it's like, this is a danger place. Don't go here. And they showed us how to like label stuff. It was pretty fun.
All in the name of practice and learning.
All in the name of practice and learning. Yeah. And so it's basically just like the more things that you're certified for, the more things that you're capable of doing, like the more useful you can be to the military. And the thing that really like took off for me was the marksmanship training. So I started off as a coach, and then I eventually worked my way up to trainer. And then like towards the end of my career, I got sent over to the actual like rifle range qualification. And I was running the ranges out there for about 2 years for my final 2 years in the Marine Corps. But I would say that like a big chunk of my time was spent sitting around and waiting and doing nothing.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of bullshit jobs.
Fair enough. We're going to do a quick shout out here and then continue on. We got Tam in the chat. Hello, Tam. And we got Jenna Nelson in the chat. Welcome, y'all. Thanks for the support.
Aloha.
Good to have y'all. And yes, Mr. Pumpkin is around and he's been fed, so he's probably just going to scream to go outside at this point.
He's a good lad.
He is a great lad. So what do you think are the benefits or trade-offs of when you're scaling a company?
Yeah.
And you have to start having roles that are going to be less paid or very, very specific, like at engineering firms in particular.
Yeah.
Right. If you've got a plan you got to draw, there's like maybe 8 different sheets in it.
Yep.
And they're all kind of like separate from each other. You don't need, they're sort of related, but not a ton.
Yeah. And the plan is the final product that you're selling to the customers.
Right. So that what can happen in a big company is you end up with like teams of people that just do one of the plans.
Yep.
Right. It's like being at a factory in China and you take this one wheel and you put it on this one thing and you're very efficient at that.
Yep.
You know, what do you think are like the benefits or trade-offs to a company of having people that do jobs that are very monotonous, but they're gaining that efficiency and they can like be more competitive?
Well, there's nuance to everything. If you get really good at one thing, then you can like become super efficient at it, you know, like you were just saying. But if there's like I remember when you were reading the Toyota Way and you were describing it to me, which shout out to the Toyota Way. That's another excellent book.
Yes.
I wanted to say written by like Mitsubishi Honda Kiyosaki guy. I don't know. I'm being a little bit silly here. The Toyota Way is a fantastic book that talks about like the highly efficient system that Japan uses for their factories and maintaining production and keeping up to date with everything. But like you can get super specialized and super good at one thing, but if the world changes, which it often does, then there's going to be some sort of complication. There's going to be some sort of like wrench in the machine that'll throw everything off. And if you're not adaptable and if you can't do more things than just that one, then your company is going to be at a disadvantage. So like the disadvantage being non-adaptability, the advantage being like you get really good at the thing that you're good at and like crazy high-speed performance and fantasticism at that. So it's a risk that an employer has to weigh, or that a business owner has to weigh, is do they want everyone trained on many things, or do they want to like focus on one thing solely?
Right. Okay. Well, on the topic of like things being efficient or not efficient, we'll talk a little bit about our government.
Ah, my favorite thing.
Yes. The government and its efficiency. So if you've never built something before, you might be unaware that to do most things in most cities of a significant scope, you're going to have to go to the city and ask for permission to do the thing that you want to do. That's just the name of the game, right? That is the world of permitting that we have. And one of the biggest problems with this whole permitting thing, to me, from the government's perspective, is permitting needs to be tied to liability. Okay. So what I mean here is if I'm going to go build a bridge, I don't know how to build a bridge, but I know an engineer who does.
Yeah.
And they go to the engineer. I say, okay, can you give me plans to build my bridge?
Yeah.
And he can do that. He can provide that product because like I can't build a bridge without him. So he's going to produce that valuable service for me.
Yep.
And I'm going to be able to go build my bridge. And then while I'm building it, I'm going to have him come out and look at it and make sure I'm doing it the way he intended with the plans.
Correct.
Right. There's interpretation and miscommunication potential there.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that like it goes well. One of the things that happens with engineers is as they like do that inspection process, they become liable for the success of the bridge, right? If I'm Bob the builder and I'm just like the guy who like builds this bridge, but like the engineers hold professional liability for the bridge not falling down. So if it falls down, it's not my fault because the engineer inspected it and said, yeah, you're good to go. You can pour your concrete, whatever.
Yeah.
So, this is not going to fall down. So with the cost and the transaction, like the value proposition, all that stuff that's going on, the engineer is assuming liability for that transaction for me to get basically permission from him to do the thing correctly.
Yeah.
The problem with permitting is that if I want to build a house in a city and I'm not required to get engineering plans and I like have my construction plans from an architect or a draftsman drawn,
sure,
I can get the house framed, I can get everything done, and I got to get all these permits and inspections. They're going to do a framing inspection, insulation inspection, energy inspection, like all this stuff, right?
Yep.
They're going to inspect all these things. And I need to get approval on them in order to like be able to live in the house and get a certificate of occupancy from the city.
What a notion. But yes, continue.
Right. And the problem is if, let's say they're inspecting like the fire blocking in my walls, right? We've talked about that on this show.
Yep.
If I missed something and let's say my house then burns down later because of like the fire thing, like it was an electrical thing that was unsafe and the inspector from the city missed it, but they passed me. The city holds no liability for my house burning down. I can't sue them.
Yeah.
Like I had to go get permission to do something.
Yeah.
But it came with no like repercussion.
Oh, what's that whole thing that Rollo always talking about with like responsibility without authority is slavery. And then having authority without responsibility. There's something to be said about that. You always have to have those three things tied together: responsibility, authority, and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a missing link between those three things, then it's an inefficient system. So I agree with you 100%. Like if someone has to give you, like if you have to go and ask someone permission to do something, then it's like, then the presupposition is that like you live inside of their world and they have ownership of whatever that
they're
thing
responsible
is
for
that you're asking permission for. Right. So
yeah, so basically just becoming the slave to the system.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, not to be fair because it's an unfair world. The world that we live in is the world that we live in, and we just got to make the best of it. And we can lament these systems, but it does suck and it is annoying that like all these government, man. I don't want to go on a tangent about the government. It's probably best we move on.
Okay, so it's rough, right? You're gonna have to get your permits, and like that's frustrating. But that's kind of the way we live, and that's like the world we live in. If you want to go, there's plenty of places in America you can go build something and no one's going to care about what you're doing.
Yep.
Right. If you want that, then you're going to have to go logistically set that up. if you want all the benefits that come with living around everybody else in cities, it's generally going to come with that. Right.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
It's like anything else.
Right. It's like there's kind of a reason that there are sort of HOAs and there's rules that people all agree in a certain area. They're like, well, we don't want someone having 500 goats in their backyard because that's going to kind of be a nuisance.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to live with that.
Yeah.
And so we're all going to collectively agree that that's not what we're going to do.
Yeah,
right.
You can't go erect a Burning Man statue at the back of this apartment complex and, light it aflame.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Shout out to Centurion 54.
Aloha Centurion. This is a good gentleman. He's recently started streaming. So,
oh yeah.
Well, he hopped on the F and Hangout with us from the DJ Roundtable. What's up, Centurion? Good to see
awesome.
you.
Good to see you, man.
Welcome. Good to see you.
And Tam has affirmed that Mr. Pumpkin is cute. He is, for sure.
Can confirm, yes.
So the government's kind of a pain, and we're going to tie this now into like engineering, right? When I was an engineer beforehand, I was doing mostly framing design of custom homes.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the work that I did was in San Antonio. And one of the rules in San Antonio is if you're going to build a house or anything of size, you have to get an engineer's stamp on your plans in order to build it.
An engineer.
Yep. A licensed professional engineer.
Yep. He's got a piece of paper that says, hey guys, I'm good for it.
Correct. Yeah. And we're going to talk about like the whole scam that is, right? So,
oh boy.
Right. So there's a difference between, just like in any other trade, doctors, nurses, whatever, right? There's a difference between people who understand how to do something and someone who holds the piece of paper.
Yep.
Now, for doctors, it's a little bit different because like they have to learn a lot more.
Oh yeah.
So there's generally going to be more in their head.
Sure.
Fine.
The principle is the same.
The principle is the same, right? I would say for engineering, it's even worse because like to get the engineering license, you basically just need to go to college for 4 years and do some engineering.
Yep.
And like, that's pretty broad stuff. You're not going to be learning like actual practical stuff that's applied in school.
Okay.
So like you learn the principles, but in terms of effectively designing bridges, you're not going to learn that in school.
Okay.
Right. If you go to a company and work under another professional engineer for 4 years and they basically see the work that you do and they like what you do, you can get your stamp, right? You can get you got to go pass the tests, right? And
your little stamped collection.
Right. You get your stamp, right? So what can be complicated about that is that an engineer's stamp can stand for a lot of different things. I could be doing framing of houses for 4 years, go get my engineering stamp, and then like be able to put a stamp on like a chemical plant for like processing oil.
Oh.
Right.
But you probably wouldn't.
I wouldn't, because it becomes an ethical thing.
Yeah.
What you start to do as an engineer is you specialize and you only stamp things that you understand. That's the whole point.
But yeah, and because if you stamp something and the people that you're stamping for are done goof it, then that's a lot of money out of your pocket.
Correct. So they don't like that. But
people dying and things. Oh, we lost it.
Uh-oh. That's okay. I should be able to just move the mouse. Okay. Do it live, gentlemen.
Yes.
And ladies. So what I found to be like the bullshit job part of engineering was the fact that most of my work was being performed to check a box for somebody.
Correct.
Right?
It wasn't useful.
It wasn't useful. And most of the time, the framers that are out in the field, they don't even look at it. You're lucky if they've got the plan.
Yeah.
Right? The builders say, yeah, okay, I got my engineering. They send it to the city. They get the permitting all done, all that good dandy. They're sending their plans off to a lumberyard who's going to do a takeoff. It's probably separate from the engineering plan. And like
the takeoff is securing all the materials.
Yeah. That's the materials list.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. So they're going to like get this like bill of materials to build the house. And then they're going to just give that to the state, like framers show up at this time. There's going to be a bunch of materials. Here's the architectural plans of the house. Go ahead and build it. And framers are going to be like, well, I'm a framer and I've been framing for 20 years. So I know how houses are framed. And they're just going to go at it because like they're prideful and they're proud of the trade that they've been like learning. And like framers frequently understand, like similar to how I have a lot of technical background understanding like stresses and strains and like all this engineering principles.
Yep.
You understand the application.
Yep.
Because you're around it and that kind of thing. Framers understand the application. They understand that if it's a wider span, the beam's going to be bigger. They can't quantify it.
Yeah.
But like they got the concepts. And so usually they'll run with that and be like, well, that looks like it'll be good enough because this is kind of what it's been in the past.
Yeah.
So the loss of value from the engineering perspective was my plans weren't actually being used to do the thing that's producing the value.
Yeah.
The production of the house, the building of the house, the bank loan, all that stuff is tied to the house existing.
Yep.
And not falling down.
Yep.
And lasting a long time, yada, yada, yada.
And the thing that you did was in line with like, these guys need to get a check from a city inspector in order to have like, to go forward with the thing.
Correct.
And so you produced a thing to put a check in that box.
Yep.
So it's literally just it's a complication made by Uncle Sam in order to, not Uncle Sam. It's a complication made by the city of San Antonio to get this, that, the other thing. Man, I wonder how many people like had to die of, you know, whatever it was, because it was it foundation stuff?
Yeah. So
how many people died of foundation?
Well, it was foundation and framing and all that.
Yeah.
It's not, I wouldn't even say it's about the people dying. Because
Whatever the problems were.
typically what happens is once development services groups figure out that, oh, we could charge a $50 permit fee for you to get a fence. That's income.
Yeah.
You're getting more tax money out of people that live in your city because like they're gonna build fences anyway.
Yeah.
So we might as well have a fee for it. Right.
Ah.
And so once they start figuring out like these things add on, they never come off. Right. The government never says, you know what, we should be smaller.
You know what? We're charging you too much money.
We're gonna lay ourselves off, pay ourselves
Right.
less. Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we're gonna print less money this time around.
Correct. So
Nickels and dimes, baby.
yeah. So like that's the situation that we got with the permitting thing.
So what's the actionable step that folks can do to, I suppose the actionable step is knowing that there's going to be a lot of bullshit jobs and just doing your best to try and work around them as much as you can until you scale to the point where you have to integrate them. I suppose that's the lesson here.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Right. And if you personally end up in a like bullshitized job, then you know maybe you're going to work and like you're literally sitting at a desk and you're trying to like find things to do.
Yeah.
Right. You can kind of look at it in two ways. One, it's like, okay, you can dread it. Or two, you can think about, okay, you know what? This is dreadful. I'm going to use the time to like maybe better myself or
get out of that.
Or be that much more motivated to save the money and make good financial decisions so you can get out of that situation.
Yep.
Right. So for me, the whole design world basically went from, and I literally just did this like yesterday, right? I had somebody come to me and they were like, all right, I need to know how to build this house, and the bank needs to know a number. How much does the house cost? And that comes from understanding how much wood you have to buy.
Yeah.
And all like the siding materials and all that stuff. And most of the other numbers come from contractors. You say, hey, how much is the drywall?
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, boom, $50,000. Okay. Drywall number, materials, it's all included. Good to go. Drywall, painting, siding, roofing, you name it. Those are like big chunks that come from contractors. But frequently, you're not going to have the framing and siding materials as part of that. And that's a big portion of the cost of the house. So in order to successfully build the house, he needs to know that information. He doesn't need his framers to know how to frame a house. He only needs just enough information, either on plan form or in a file, in an Excel sheet or whatever, saying, what do I buy to get it here so the framer can take it and build it?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's more so what I've shifted to doing is like, I'm taking all of the engineering stuff that I know.
Yeah.
And I'm using it to produce only enough value, like only enough product that solves the problem of the value.
Yep.
Right. So
it's highly efficient. That's good. And I'm sure that people you do business with love that, because it's not like you're not overcharging for doing unnecessary bullshit jobs.
That's correct. Yes.
So,
I am charging a price that they are willing to pay for just the right product. So
I would highly recommend to the folks at home, if you guys are in a bullshit job, like if that's your prerogative, then so be it. But I personally would want to get out of that and go and set forth trying to make the world a better place in an effective manner or something. If it's a means to an end to collect money, then hey, so be it. But I highly suggest finding a way to monetize doing the thing that you enjoy doing, if that's at all possible for you guys. Find a way to make that work. Find a way to make that happen. You enjoy doing the architecture, you enjoy building, you enjoy teaching. At some point, I expect this YouTube channel, this Bungalows for Bachelors, is going to spring off, and if nothing else, it's proof of concept that you know all this stuff. So it's going to be good, man. The future is bright.
yes.
And we've only just begun.
We've only just begun.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So on the subject of people finding like jobs that are value producing and meaningful, you climb towers now,
I do.
right? How would you describe the tower working experience versus the military in terms of like actually seeing, like when you're building towers, you got to see the tower. It's like
Yeah.
there was no tower here,
Yep.
and now there's a 2,000-foot tower.
Yep.
Right? How would you describe the difference in experiences between the
Mm.
bullshit job versus the like producing something that's actively being used?
Well, so I did do a lot of. I will say that I did do a lot of important things in the military. Like I had mentioned earlier, the final 2 years of my career, I spent training about 20,000 Marines on, or like making sure that 20,000 Marines got qualified on the range that I was running, and so that was super satisfying. And just knowing that I'm contributing to the mission readiness of the armed services, like specifically the men and women of the Marine Corps, that was really cool and that was awesome. But like, it's more of that's more conceptual. It's more like, it's not something that you can reach out and touch. When I'm out there, like stacking towers, destacking towers, putting up antennas, swapping out line, like transmission line, or cleaning up burnouts, or changing out a guy wire. Like there's a tangible difference, and it's kind of nifty because as I travel around the States, I see towers like, oh, I was up on that one. Oh, I swapped out that light up there. Oh, I did this, that, and the other thing. And the end result is so that some people can sit down on their TV at the end of the day and watch some news or something, or so that like people as they're driving, they can listen to AM, FM radio, like, because that's the towers that I work on is TV, radio, both AM and FM. So it's all broadcast. But it's a really cool thing to do, to like look around and like see a physical thing that you have created. And I'm sure that you can relate to that, being in like the home construction and the home renovation and the home refurbishing world. So like having that sort of physical reminder that like, hey, I have put blood, sweat, toil, and tears into the creation of this valuable thing that is generating like a ton of value for other people, whether it's TV signal or radio signal or a house or like a qualification on a range or something, right? Like having those like I suppose just points of satisfaction are super crazy. So your question was, what's the difference, right? Or
yeah. What was your experience like?
Yeah.
If you were in terms of
there's more satisfaction to life. There's more like reason to live. The raison d'etre. It's like, if you don't have a thing that you're doing that you like believe in, it's like, what are you pushing forward for? There needs to be a purpose. There needs to be a thing, like a goal, some sort of thing that you're striving to achieve. And this goes like for your entire life, even after people retire. Like I personally don't believe in, well, I know that it exists, retirement, right? But like, I don't think that it's for me. I don't think that the idea of like, I'm going to stop producing, I might slow it down or I might change what I'm doing, but like, I'm going to I think that I'm going to be busy until the day that I die, right? Like doing the things that I love to do, whatever that might be. And hopefully I can find a way to make the things that I love doing into a thing that's valuable both for myself and for other people, so as to like just be constantly making the world a better place, as opposed to like at some point I retire and then I rest on my laurels and get fat and happy and then just kind of like slump into a couch and eventually get old and die. That doesn't seem too romantic to me.
Right.
I would say that's the basic difference between the stuff that I was doing in the military and that other people that might have bullshit jobs might be doing as well. And like having a job that has purpose, having a job that has, significance and measurable outcome.
Right. Fair enough. And that could be difficult for people that were like very functional, valuable middle managers. It can be hard for them to measure that and see that.
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes.
Well, like if you got a really good team, if you're getting a lot of praise from your people, like if you're a really good manager of folks, like then that's valuable. If you're a really shitty manager of folks, then that's a bullshit job. The idea is like, just it feels really good to make the world more valuable,
Yes.
And that's what it all boils down to. I think is the difference between a bullshit job and a non-bullshit job is the world a better place as a result of the toil and the sweat and the sacrifice,
Right. Would you say that you had a slight experience of satisfaction at the end of the day today, looking back up at the wall and being like, oh, it's like done?
Bro, that's cool as hell.
Is that cool?
I had never done siding before.
Yeah.
And just re-siding a house, like that was the coolest thing. So it's just like our good friends Jonathan and Stephanie now have like a complete, well, not a complete product, but a one step closer to complete product at like the addition to their house. So it's like, that's fucking sweet. Like we sat there cutting all these boards, nailing shit up all day, measuring stuff, slapping the chalk lines, like all that crap. Like that was freaking cool, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome. It is nice to see a tangible result of your efforts.
Yes. And I would argue that like it's particularly fun in like a home world because like someone's going to be around that. They're going to look at that a lot. Like on a TV tower, it's a little bit different. Not everybody looks at them as beautifully as we do.
Sure.
Right. So
that's absolutely right.
Yeah. What would you say is the one last question? What would you say is like the biggest difference between the woodworking and steelworking, ironworking?
The biggest difference between woodworking and ironworking, the weight.
The weight. Yeah.
So like as an
Although
ironworker, I
right.
carry around a fuck ton of weight all day. But like with wood, it's like, oh, like these boards. And also like doing ironworking, I feel way safer because I'm harnessed into everything at all times. So like I can work with both my hands and like step out and like press against something, like lean way over here and be put like some significant force on something. In the woodworking world, like there's no harness.
Yeah, it's like you push on the wall and your ladder.
You push on the wall, your ladder falls off, you know? So it's like, it's totally different, bro. Like the weight and the security, like security of positioning, you know, like your mind will break before the steel, but like wood can break moderately easily. You chop it up with like, we were sitting there with like drills and saws all day and we were cutting this shit up all over the place. You want to cut steel, man, you're sitting there with a grinder or a sawzall or a chop saw and you're fucking going at it for a while. Yeah. So like, I trust steel a lot more than I trust wood, but like, it's just, I just have to learn how it works and learn how it functions. And it's like, it's so much easier to work with wood. It's so much more malleable and you can do like, you can do different things with each of them. But
did you feel, so today we had a little plank set up on the top of ladders and originally the plank was just 2 2x6s that were separate from each other.
Yeah.
And you added on these little wood brackets, right? I'm presuming it was you.
Yeah.
Okay. And basically made them into one piece.
Yeah.
Was that something that like made your peace of mind a little bit easier being up?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Cause like, you know, 2 boards are as strong as, like you were saying earlier in the day, if there are 2 boards that were each 6 inches wide, combined together, it's just as strong as one board that's 12 inches wide. But with them being like separate from each other, if you shift your weight onto the one, then it'll bend more than the other. And it's like, now you've got like a balance issue. So by joining the 2 boards together and making it into one solid board, it's like, okay, now I don't have to worry about like stability as much and I can focus more on the thing that I'm doing rather than like, oh snap, I gotta like, I have to reserve 20% of my brain for balancing instead of like 100% for work. Yeah. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. I see it as like an efficiency, like process thing.
I would imagine it would be a little different. So on some of the siding projects I was doing in Washington, we had planks that were like 24 feet long and they're about 2 feet wide. And it's like an aluminum flat surface with a gripper on it. Right. So it's like when you've got the jacks pumped up all the way, and you're up on top of this thing, you're standing on a 2 foot wide platform, and on the outside of the jacks is another platform. So it's like you have a railing behind you. Yeah. So it's like much safer. I mean, one of the funny things is that was the first work I got into after I was stopped climbing towers. Right. I got up there on the siding on the first day of the job. The guy's like, all right, go install that soffit panel under the eave. Right. Yeah. And like those are a pain to install because you're upside down and they're really flimsy and they're really long. Right. Yeah. And on this one, it was the top of a 2-story building. And it was like we just set up the ladders. We had to carry this plank on our shoulder up the ladder and like get it up on the plank thing and then climb up on top of it. And it's like now I'm 20 feet off the ground and I don't have a harness or anything. Yeah. I'm just on that was a little 12-inch plank. It was a little narrower, right? So it was very real at the beginning, learning the difference between like, wow, I'm really not attached to anything. And I've fallen off a roof before. Yeah. So it's like, I know that doesn't feel very good.
With towers, bro, you can attach to anything. Big steel tower, fucking, nothing's breaking.
Right.
Nothing's breaking.
Basically.
You put your weight in everything all day long. Yep. But like on a house, like you can't just clip off to the side of a house, lean back into your harness and be like, all right, time to do this, that, and the other thing, you know, like upside down spider monkey and work down by your feet or whatever. It's like, it doesn't work. Yeah. So like there's a whole lot more like mental safety once you get used to working in a positioning harness and like being able to contort your body around against itself and use your own body as leverage to move things that you can't do in the woodworking world because you don't have like a point of like solid reference other than your feet touching the ground or your butt if you're sitting down. You know?
Right.
the hardest. It's a whole new world, whole different world.
Yes, I would agree. Awesome. Well, let's do a little quick chat shout out, and then we're gonna cut it off here. We got Jenna, we got Tam, we got Centurion. Appreciate you guys spending your time here.
Oh, talking about doing work with a physical product at the end is proof of effort that you can be proud of. Hell yes.
That's correct.
Centurion knows all about that
Absolutely.
stuff. Wow, they've been going at it. Good for you
Yes,
guys.
they have.
We're glad to have you guys live with us. This is excellent.
Yes, surely is. Awesome. Thank you guys for coming on. Again, if you want to check out any Bungalows or Bachelor stuff, you're obviously on the YouTube channel. Check out the YouTube channel and check out the Telegram. All the links are in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. It's good to see everyone here, and we will see you on the next one.